All right, so we're gonna call to order the City of River Falls Utility Advisory Board for February 20th, 2022. Lene, can we have a roll call?
Terrell. Lick,
Present.
Carol,
Present.
Spafford,
Present.
Toom,
Here.
Wells Mangle,
Here.
Clifford.
Here. All right, moving on to public comment. Do we have any public comment for tonight? We can step up to our lovely podium. I'm gonna take that as a no. Moving on to our consent agenda. Looking for a,
Go back. You need to do the approval of the minutes.
oh, I have those in a different, all right. Can we have the approval for the minutes from both?
No, December 12th.
December 12th.
Thanks. Didn't have that.
It's right, it's just below the roll.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
Who was the second?
Yeah.
Thank you.
any discussion on the minute? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Now the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to
Mr. Chair, I'm just noting that Nick Hero is here. You guys are very prompt this evening.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Nick,
Hello,
Always prompt.
we have you marked down as present. Thanks for joining.
you bet. Thank you.
So I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes or the consent agenda?
One of the items that they were looking at receiving bids, I assume is for the 0.5 earlier this month. How did they, is that public now?
Yes, it is. The bids came in. The low bid was 9.2 million. They were hoping for about 8.5. The next bid was 10.5. I think there was one at 12. So we're gonna have a meeting with all the members on, I think it's the 7th of March, to go over those bids, and a lot of the members want more information. So bids are a little high. The engineer is pretty confident that if they go out to bid or wait, it could be more. So they're going to package up a little presentation to the membership. I think it's Monday or Tuesday, March 7th, to go over that with them and answer questions for other boards and commissions. Some puckering going on with both Hudson and Richmond a little bit, knowing that our departure is going to mean higher costs from them. So they have a cost breakout sheet for the first 2 years of that loan, and then after we leave, and their costs go up significantly. So
What was our portion of that again?
we're about 20%. So we'll pay, but we will pay only, they're going to take, they'll be taking out a loan for roughly $6 million. It will, and that's gonna be blended into the rates. So we'll only be paying on that 25-year loan for 2 years. The rates. Then they'll be up. So when we leave though, then our percentage goes to everybody else. And then Hudson and Richmond being the next two largest users, it's gonna impact them pretty significantly. And actually, we, in our early estimates of our transition, we had included 23 as paying that loan as part of our rates, but that's not really that loan won't be offered until late 23. So probably won't start till January of 24. So we'll only have to pay on that in 24 and 25, a year less than we thought. So that's good for us. So I'm on that board. I'm interested in it. I think the information's good. But it's not much fretting for us.
If their costs potentially are going up, I mean, we're going to be building something as well. Like, I guess, where do we stand then too?
That's a very good question. So Dean and I have been working with Strand, our engineer, on that. And some good news on that is we have locked in the price, or Strand has locked in the price for the dryer itself, which is a pretty big component of it. It's really, the price they locked in was really close to their initial offer price. And then the cost of the silo that we thought was going to be higher is a little less than we thought. So we don't want to say we're gonna be below budget, but I think all of our early selections of what we're gonna put into that are coming in at budget or a little lower. I do think you're gonna get higher costs on electrician costs and maybe some of the building build. I mean, those were some items that were higher at West Central. The electrician costs were higher, so that you're gonna have a tough time avoiding that, but some of our initial big decisions are gonna be, I think, at budget. So we're about at $8 million, I'm not gonna be surprised if it comes at 8.5 in a year from now, but we're at 8, and the early indications are, we're selecting things and we're still feeling good about the pricing today.
Okay.
So that was a kind of a long answer to Tim's question, but it's all really pertinent information for the board. So I don't think you voted on that? I don't know if you did or not. Did they vote on them?
Yep, they just need to, he's to ask the
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah, in the January 26th meeting minutes, Kevin, they talked about this odor reducer,
Yes,
CARUS, is that how you say it? CARUS?
yes. So
And the facility that makes it burn down, and there's what, yeah. How does that actually work? They pump it into the stack as it's going, the odor?
it breaks down the odor. Yeah, I'm not sure the ionization of that odor, but it's needed there. Because if you go there today, it stinks. It's terrible.
Well, so they did run out of their supply and they have.
Yeah. I was there the other day and I could smell it on my clothes at 2:30 in the afternoon. I mean, the plant manager too, he bemoans it. He's like, my people have to work in this every day. I mean, it's not very nice, so.
Is this something that we'll have to manage as well, and I suspect?
Our plant, a little, but not too much, actually. The way it breaks down, what we're doing in that dryer condenses that smell pretty good. Almost to nothing, so. Really, they have a real heavy ammonia smell because some of their processing is not gonna have that. Because they have lime stabilization, and then you get ammonia, so we aren't gonna have that.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Alright. Moving on to new business. A resolution recommending approval of the contract with water and sewer service area plan update. Kevin?
Yes, I don't have a presentation, but we'll talk through that a little bit. If you remember, about 4 months ago, we were going to line the rest of the North Interceptor sewer. And we discovered some areas with 12-inch, I think there's even a 10-inch piece in there under the river. And we looked at our sewer service area plan and recognized that the last time it was updated was in 2009. We think that piece going under the river in the North Interceptor is probably good for today. But then we said, well, geez, maybe it should be replaced. And then we said, maybe we shouldn't make this decision until we get more up-to-date information. Because we're planning on doing the sewer service area plan. We had planned on doing it last year. We were kind of waiting for community development to kind of finish up their city maps, I believe, maybe. And that's coming to more of a close. We have a more defined area now, so we feel comfortable now finishing up the sewer service area plan and the water service area plan. And then taking what we learn out of that and then making the decision about the North Interceptor, whether we line or replace. So the timing is just good. It's gonna, the North Interceptor is gonna be delayed 6 to 9 months from what we wanted to do, but I think we can make a better decision. So again, it's been since 2009 since we updated the sewer plan, 2007 since we updated the water plan. A lot of growth going in north. I think Chris asked me in an email today, what was the results of the first plans? Did it kind of happen what we predicted? There was some prediction to go more east. And there was even a water tower maybe planned across from Highview Meadows. We didn't really grow in that direction, but I think we're going more north than we thought. So this new sewer service area plan will help define hopefully the next 15, 20 years through new assumptions that we have and stuff that's actually happening now. So went up to bid. We did end up getting a couple bids on that, as you can see. SCH had done the work on this previously. They've done another sewer service area plan, some of our water modeling, but they were the high bid on this. And Strand came in at a third less, basically Strand came in at 64,200, SCH came in at 94,900. So we're recommending that we do this project with Strand at 64,200. We did have $100,000 budgeted to do that in last year's CIP, which we delayed, which we're gonna do this year. So it's under our budget. I mean, quietly, we're a little surprised, and since SEH had done all that previous work, I think if we were to guess, we thought maybe those two numbers would have been flipped and SEH would have been a little cheaper, but this is the way it came in, so we got in Strand and we feel comfortable going with that. So our recommendation is to go with Strand to update our sewer service area plan and our water service area plan. This will be an actionable item that you'd recommend that council consider.
So this is an update from the 2007 and 2009.
Correct, yes.
And this looks out how many years? 20?
15,
20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
Am I missing anything?
No, I think it's good, you made a good point. It dovetails nicely with the City of River Falls comprehensive plan update. As the comprehensive plan gets updated, we know what future land use is expected to be or could be outside of our corporate limits in our subdivision and exterior zoning. So then the engineer working on this plan will take those land use assumptions and convert that to a future water use. So we can use that to size a future well or site a future well, size a future water tower, and then look at the existing capacity of our infrastructure inside the city, the north interceptor that Kevin mentioned, to make sure that we can support that growth with with all of our infrastructure, not just our new stuff.
I know Chris also asked me in an email, why don't we do this internally? It's fairly labor intensive. I mean, it's gonna take probably, I would guess, 2 or 3 of their staff, a couple months to complete this. We just don't have the bandwidth internally to do that. That's why we contract this out. Any more questions on that and what we're trying to accomplish? We're just trying to make educated, good decisions for the infrastructure, what we're doing. That's all I have.
Okay.
If there's no more questions.
Well then, can I have a motion to adopt the resolution recommending that the UAB advise the city council to award the contract for updating the city's water and sewer service area plans to Strand Associates Incorporated?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any further discussion on this question?
I did have a question. How long do we expect the plan to take? Or for them, for Strand to put everything together?
Roughly 3 to 4 months is a guess.
Could we maybe amend the resolution just to have an end date to say that this plan is completed by that June or July timeline?
I thought it was in there, Kevin.
Sir,
There was a date in the.
But I don't think that date didn't make it to the resolution, which is why I guess I think we should add it to
I
there.
think, yeah, it was in the bid, I think, the expectation of time frame. The expectation time frame was in the bid. And that, to your point, that's kind of on the honor system. I mean,
Have there been any issues with that company or anything like this? I mean, we're not expecting any curveballs or anything like that.
no, and Strand is also working on our drive project as well. So,
Got an existing.
I mean, I say, Todd, if we get this done by July 1st, are you comfortable with that? I mean, that's what you're probably thinking.
I think that's what we were hoping we would see from whoever was successful. And then the intent is that hopefully we get it back soon enough in time to bid out or decide if we, with this north interceptor, if a lining project will suffice for the next 20 years, or if we need to plan to replace that century.
So make that decision yet in 23.
That's the intent.
So I'll just defer to our city engineer too, and kind of have a side conversation, but would you feel more comfortable, Todd, if there was a date in the resolution, or do you feel comfortable with what we have outlined in our bid?
I'm comfortable with whatever the board is comfortable. I think we can push Strand to make sure that they comply with what they put in their proposal, and we're happy to hold them to their word, assuming that council approves also at the same time frame.
I would say that I'm comfortable with the RFP stating it, and if they bid on it, 2 out of 4 bid on it, that they
Can do the work.
so.
Yeah, no, if you're comfortable, if you're working with them, I guess it's just if you've got plans that we need to get X, Y, Z done. And they don't get their part done, now it sets everything back, but if obviously you work with them on a day-to-day basis, that is probably reasonable.
And I have a good relationship with those folks and I will make sure we let them know of our expectation and deadline. And
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Carries. Moving on to reports. Evan?
KCC update report, so, man, this feels like 4 months in the making. And today, right up until about 2:30 today, Steve Goff was gonna be here and give a report, but he did have a bit of a hospital emergency he had to take care of, so I'll just leave it at that. And he intended on being here, but he could not be here, even though he wanted to be here. But Amy Peterson is here, our community development director. She's been at all our meetings. We've been in close contact with Steve, and she's gonna give us the update today and answer questions.
Yes, best laid plans. I am so sorry. My goodness, we tried twice now and have failed twice to have KCC here, but it's been family and medical issues that are coming up. So we will work on it next to hopefully put them here. But in the meantime, just wanted to give you an update. I haven't been to see you since November. At that point, you guys forwarded the recommendation to City Council to move forward with the study with the Army Corps. Council then approved. And we were anticipating getting the federal cost share agreement from the Army Corps at the end of January. The Army Corps then reached out and said they needed more time. So they shot us a timeframe of the end of February. I do have confirmation that we will be receiving that. And we have put it on the February 28th council agenda to have the signing of the document at council on the 28th. At that time, KCC will also be there to present the 50,000 that they offered up as well. So that's the timeline we have and we're running with. And those are the updates that I have. Once that federal cost share agreement gets signed, I'm gonna actually get on the call with the court tomorrow to get some more details on payment. And I think we're supposed to get a project management plan from them that will kind of lay out some more details of where we're headed over the next 18 to 24 months. So we'll go more after that.
So what was the final that it came in at?
The cost of the study, we do not have that. We still have the estimate that they provided, which was the 750,000. That was the top end. That's what we have. So I am anticipating when I talk with them tomorrow that they should be able to get us a better estimate before we.
So 750 minus 100 that they were getting to
Federal pays the first 100, so then we're down to 650. Then it's split, and I just went over this with Josh.
Very clear.
And 50% is federal, 50% then is local. So then we're down to 325 for the city share, of which then we split 50-50 with KCC. So the city is down to 162.55. Is that right?
And when are they gonna expect payment on that?
Yeah, that's the golden ticket question too. I do have a voicemail from them that says basically they get going, right? They've got the first 100,000 so they can get moving. And then they will take payment as they go. So we don't have to, at least I believe, we don't have to provide everything up front. We can kind of give them some and they'll do some more work and see how it goes.
Then the KCC's balance will be paid, their other 100.
When we ask for it.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're providing 50 and then they owe another 100, so 110, 112-ish thousand.
Do they feel pretty comfortable?
They have expressed to me that, yes, they're perfectly fine providing the rest of it. They actually asked, when do you need it by? And I haven't been able to give them that great answer yet, but. So.
Any other questions for Amy? It's good update. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Next up is Mann Valley.
You know, I was thinking over the last month, the city council and Scott Simpson's office have been moving forward with a plan for Mann Valley development over the last 18 months. And I haven't talked that deeply with this group about what we're doing in Mann Valley, what we want to do in Mann Valley, how we want to develop Mann Valley, how we get utilities to Mann Valley. So I'm like, shoot, we better give you a little presentation on that, because we're gonna be coming back to you and asking you for some utility spends to run water and sewer out there in the near future. And you'll have a better idea and some context after Todd McCluskey, our city engineer, gives us a little update today on Mann Valley, what's happening in Mann Valley.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So Utility Director Wessos asked me to come in and just update this group. We've a lot of us been working hard trying to get these plans out the door, and it's really cool seeing it come together after a decade of city planning. So, you know, though most of you know, Mann Valley, the Mann Valley Corporate Park it's on the west side of the city, you know, bounded on the south by County Highway U, M, and on the north by County Highway U. This has been purchased by the city about a decade ago, if I'm not mistaken-ish, maybe more. Carrie's saying sketch it out a little bit, with the intent of this being the next big corporate park, you know, as we see Whitetail and Sterling Ponds fill out. So it's a really big project, and the biggest portion of this project is going to be utilities. This is what the city council adopted as the concept plan last year in 2022. Approximately 226 acres of office and light industrial, 10 to 60 acres of mixed use development ultimately, some low density residential, and there is some school property currently on the southeast corner. And then, of course, Conservancy up on, if you're familiar with it, there's the big mound on the northeast corner, and then the existing dry, it's called, you know, Dry Run Creek, or the dry run up through the middle. So from this concept plan, the city contracted with SCH to start developing engineering plans. We started with 30% plans. City reviewed those, moved to 60% plans, and now we have reviewed the 90% plans, and SCH is working towards final construction plans. One of the, you know, there's going to be a lot of things, and I don't exactly know the order in which a contractor will build them. But if you're familiar with the property, there is currently a big stormwater channel kind of cutting right through the middle of it. Probably the first thing we expect a contractor to do is to excavate a new stormwater channel around the west side of the park. And by doing that, we're opening up about 7 or 8 additional acres of development that isn't going to be consumed by a stormwater channel. The green lines here indicate sanitary sewers. So we will have about 2.5 miles of sanitary sewer installed with this project, which will also include abandoning the existing DeSantis Park lift station and building a new lift station to the west of it. So the gravity sewer from the existing DeSantis Park will be grabbed, extended to the west, new pump station, pumping back towards the old DeSantis location, tying into the existing forest main and pumping to Maple Street and down the tree.
That's the orange line in the bottom.
The orange line.
So the right side of the orange line in the bottom is the existing lift station. We'll be going to a new lift station on the left side of that little orange line.
So just this 2.5 miles of sanitary street looks like a huge project. But then we tack on 4.5 miles of water main. No big deal, right, Dean? So this water main will connect to the existing water main near DeSantis Park, be extended west and then north through the proposed corporate park and then up Radio Road, where it will connect into the not yet constructed north utility loop, which is, as you know, under contract with Total Excavating, probably gonna see some construction activity on Folsom Road this April-ish. Which also relies on the also not yet completed North Water Tower, which we hope to see some action on also in April. And then after the utilities are underground, we will be installing, minimum roadways. They actually didn't come in real solid here, but there'll be a proposed roadway from West Division Street north to a cul-de-sac. Just to start some make it look like there's a corporate park and have a road. And then Radio Road will be extended across Powell down into the park with a cul-de-sac and the idea is is to not build a roadway for a developer that we don't have yet, and we don't know what if their specific needs may be. And we also, it's gonna be a really kind of a cool, it's gonna be a multi-use asphalt trail adjacent to the big utility loop through the park that, walkers and bikers will be able to use it, but it's real intent is so our water and wastewater crews can drive on the trail to access their infrastructure.
I would like just to reemphasize the importance of the North Water Tower. That is a key component to serving water to Mann Valley. So without the new water tower, we couldn't get the pressures we need for fire flows and a corporate park without North Tower that will be completed by hopefully August of this year.
Yeah, and I haven't been around long enough to take credit for that planning, but it is really, really cool how, the water tower is the first domino to fall, and then the North Loop is the next domino to fall, and then that enables us to build this project. So it's really just a massive project. It's been cool to be a part of.
Is that blue line in the middle going east-west, going across Powell? Is that coming from the tower then?
No, the tower will connect up on Folsom Road,
Oh,
travel south along Radio Road, then it will actually,
This is new here. Go.
yeah, okay, this may be new. The university has indicated that they're willing to give us, sanitary and water easements across their property. So we will be, we don't have them in hand, we're working with them. We will be installing water and sewer west across the university through a grass waterway, and then south along their gravel access drive. And that'll be the main route for water and sewer to get from the North Tower, the new North Tower, down into our corporate park.
There is interest from the university to hook onto our water and sewer system. We're at the farm.
because they have a pretty good sized well right there on the farm, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do.
Right by the house.
I'm not exactly sure of their specifics, but I know they have some long-term plans that include more construction, and when they enact those plans, they may have a need for a municipal water system and wastewater collection and treatment system. That's a ways out, but that's I think the intent. So as I said, we're pushing pretty hard on this. The project plans are not yet complete, but we do intend to have them mostly complete by the end of this week or early next week, and advertised on Quest CDN online bidding, and open bids March 23rd. And then we would bring those bids back to this group on April 17th for your first cut at it. And then council May 9th, and if everything goes well, we would award a contract sometime in June and start the project in July of 2023, and contractor would probably have about a year to do it. So again, this is a, you know, this timeline, it's subject to change, but this is what we're shooting for.
And we don't have exact numbers yet, but I just do want to mention it so we don't gloss it over. I mean, this is gonna be a big investment for the utility, you know, to get the water and sewer lines out there. But we're also hedging, this is an investment into customers that we're gonna be looking at the system, so. Like a developer would, right? You're putting in infrastructure and we have people working on getting businesses out there, so.
Good thing we have no other major projects or expenses coming.
Yeah,
Yeah. No. That's going on.
I mean, we have our finance director, you're gonna hear from him a little bit later, but yeah, he doesn't leave his keyboard too often. He's running numbers constantly. I see him pacing his office.
Just eating a bottle of Tums for lunch.
Right. So anyway, we want to give you an update on Man Valley. It's been, again, a decade in the making. And our engineers have been working on it pretty hard for the last 6 to 9 months. And I think it's coming together. And we'll be seeing more of that here in 23.
Yeah, I mean, there's always wrenches in construction projects, but we'll deal with them.
Do you have any initial high level questions regarding that we should be aware of or thinking about?
I don't think Man Valley is a surprise or like a secret to anybody. And so like what sort of interest, I guess, from like companies or corporations have already sort of reached out? Because I mean, you projected, you know, July of 2024. Not that you have to name names. like,
No, but we do
there
have the right
was
person here to answer that question. Carrie is working full time. And there's not many days that go by when you're not getting a call.
Yeah, so.
Carrie, go ahead, come on up.
Yeah, so great question. Yeah, so, if you don't know, so my role at the city is economic development manager. So my job is to bring businesses into the city and
It's Carrie.
Carrie Steiner, sorry, and help and work with the businesses that are already here in our corporate parks and downtown. And so I get calls monthly. We've had quite a few businesses that were interested in Man Valley. But just didn't match up with their timeline. They wanted to be in the ground in places sooner than we were able to get to them. But I think it's a build it and they will come. One of our lots on there is over 100 acres, and there are very few 100-acre lots in the Twin Cities metro for industrial manufacturing. So I'm very optimistic about getting businesses out there.
And how does the residential piece play into it too? I mean, are the developers reaching out to you to build or?
Yeah, so developers for residential aren't reaching out to build right now in Man Valley. However, they're aware of that Man Valley's happening and our need of housing is great, right? Without Man Valley being developed. And so as part of that concept plan, 10.5 acres are set aside for multifamily housing. And so the city is working on connecting with developers later this year to get some multifamily housing out near Man Valley in the next couple of years.
How many acres each? I thought Todd mentioned 4 acres.
There's I think 4 acres of low density
Low density.
that may, some is already there. I think, you know, and it's fluid. I mean, it can be changed, but I believe, Carrie, there's 50 acres of medium to high density residential. Is that close?
Yeah,
Year 15.
50.
so the 10.5 is 10.5 acres that the city owns that we think that we're gonna go towards high density residential. The other is private property that we're just kind of planning for in the future that could possibly one day be low residential. So yes, there's more of that, but 10.5 acres that the city owns that we think will go towards multifamily.
For these potential projects, are they TIF projects or?
Great question. Yeah, so the city is currently working on creating tax increment district number 19 out in Mann Valley. So projects when they come in, we will be ready to help incentivize if they need that.
And we don't know the exact numbers, but there may be some payback to utilities out of the tips when they go.
Yeah. So the TID will be a 25-year. Was it 25, George? 25 year? 20-year TID, so over 20 years, hopefully have enough development and increment come in that we can, do a lot of different things. Successful, which we think it will be.
And lastly, too, I want to mention, we mentioned water and sewer electric. So we already have three-phase electric out to Winfield Solutions in Mann Valley. We have some 600 amp cable right at the intersection of Powell and Radio already, so one circuit. And we're bringing 2 other circuits from power plant substation out to Mann Valley. We have conduit in Winter Street all the way out to Powell. We'll be pulling cable in that this year. Big cable, like 750 MCM, maybe 1,000 and big stuff. And then we'll also be bringing another circuit down Division Street, past the new lift station. So we'll have 3 circuits to feed Mann Valley. Enough for roughly 6 to 10 megawatts of power. If we should get a really big customer, a 15 megawatt, then we'd have to look at adding another transformer to North Sub, which we do have an empty spare pad out there. We could do that. That would be a couple-year project for a utility to accommodate that. But if that happens, just for context, I checked on Friday, like a week and a half ago, we had this whole community was using 18 megawatts. So that's every residential customer, every commercial bar, university. So if you can't imagine, if you got a 12 or 15 megawatt customer, one customer using almost as much as the entire city, that's a big customer. So we'd be happy to serve them.
That's what we want, right?
We figured that out.
Just build a Tesla plant.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks. We'll say there's some way to pull cable.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And the reason some of the electric costs aren't in these costs is because these electric projects are already in our capital improvement planning. Either A, they're already in, or B, they're already budgeted for prior to Mann Valley. So
Hey, I had a quick question before we move on.
yeah,
What is the difference cost-wise to run into the farm versus straight into radio? That was a question that was brought to me from an interested viewer.
I can say this, that the contours going past the farm is the way to go. You get natural sewer flow. If you don't go past the farm, it's gonna cost more because you have to dig about a 22-foot deep sewer. Is that right, Todd? Something like that?
I don't remember the actual numbers, but the intersection at Radio and Powell Avenue is pretty high.
Yeah.
Contour elevation wise. So I think, and don't quote me on this one, but I think sanitary sewer would be around 40 feet deep.
40 feet,
To make
okay.
gravity sewer happen through there, and that's expensive to build, hard to maintain, and we don't want our crews going down 40-foot deep manholes. But it was, you know, not impossible, but pretty deep.
So Nick, the short answer is the contours on our easement that we're trying to get from university is really best case scenario for the utility because it follows the natural contours. And we asked the university about that 5 years ago, and they weren't interested in doing that. And then in the last year, they're interested in doing that. So we're all happy because it's the best route. And the most affordable route and easiest to maintain.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. PFAS report.
Yeah, we have some good news. So in the packet is we had to do our PFAS testing in our water system. Everybody's holding their breath on that. Because, I mean, the last time we tested, I think it was parts per million, now we're parts per trillion. And they come test the water and you just don't want something bad to happen because it's gonna cost money and. You know, it's stressful on the community. So anyway, we have no detect for PFAS in our water system. So yay, I mean, that was a happy day.
And just in case somebody doesn't know, what are those again, Kevin?
PFAS,
Yep.
it's poly.
Oh, I don't need that. Just the general gist.
PFAS are what they call forever chemicals.
Okay.
Fire foam, like Teflon, some of these things that were being used. Fire foam is probably the biggest one in training facilities where they were practicing putting out fires and things like that. That was soaked into the ground. And so PFAS is forever chemicals. That's probably the biggest trackable culprit is the right word, is fire foam, but there's other things as well in manufacturing. We're fortunate here today, we don't have any PFAS in our water system, but question was brought up, what if we did? What would we do? So Dean Seamuth is here today, and I think he's got three slides talking about what if? What if we were a player, like had some PFAS, what would we do? So, and we have thought about it, and Dean is gonna let you know what we would do if we did have
And I do
PFAS.
have no slides. So, what if we had PFAS? First of all, I just came back from a DNR regulatory meeting.
I'm sorry.
That was unfortunate.
They're fun, aren't they?
Yeah, lobbyists and DNR suits talking about bills and laws. What they're calling PFAS is the new PCB. That's what they use. So it's forever chemical you can't get rid of. Will not go away. In River Falls, we're fortunate that we have 5 wells. We can function with 3. We wouldn't have no hiccup at all. So if 2 of our wells would have tested positive for PFAS, we would have been fine. We could divert our water distribution system and cover everything. 3 or more of our wells, we would have had to we could probably supply water for showers and, but not for consumption. We'd have to supply bottled water. And then if all of our wells had it, Woodbury had this issue where they couldn't sustain their water system with their wells, so they had an emergency build a water treatment facility. And I believe Wausau is in the middle of building one for their community. And Eau Claire's got about half their wells shut down right now. Because they're anywhere with an airport is pretty much gonna be in trouble. Anything that's water resistant has PFAS in it, or did. The new standards with the manufacturing, they don't, but anything with water resistant, non-stick, any of that, that's what it was in. So yes, we would have had to probably, the best a water filtration system is what carbon-based filtration system. That is the most. I have it here somewhere. Effective. It's most effective and cost effective, and it's the most tried, and that's what people do. You can do reverse osmosis. That's a lot more expensive. It's a lot harder. Problem is getting rid of the carbon once you do it. Currently, Washington State has the only incinerator that will get rid of it. So Manitowoc, right? It's Manitowoc that's got the dryer that they have to ship.
I don't know that.
They had to put a dryer in their wastewater plant because they have to ship all their sludge to Washington State to get incinerated. This is the place that has the factory that builds spray foam for firefighters. So they can't even do a subdivision without checking for PFAS in the ground. So I did learn that at my regulatory meeting. And the other thing, any other questions on water, drinking water PFAS? Did I answer questions?
What is, generally speaking, what do they say it's, what is the particles per million or whatever, and what will that do to people?
70, well, what they're saying is it's a cancer causing carcinogenic that. I haven't heard the exact diseases or cancers it's causing, but. That's what it's doing. The regulatory number is 70 parts per trillion. That's what the DNR. The EPA hasn't come up with a number yet, but they assume they're gonna do the 70 as well.
Is it a target number or is it codified?
That's what
Target, isn't it?
if you're over 70 parts per trillion, you will need to treat your water. Filter it, whatever you need. It's their target, it's what they say is bad. They've tossed around several numbers and that's what they came up with. If you look at our results. 0.31 parts per trillion is basically as low as they can go to detect. And we had none of that. There's different numbers for each test they did, but. That's basically what the level of detection is, what the smallest amount is that you can detect. So. Wastewater, PFAS, we are gonna be required to monitor that in our. Next permit, which is 2025. The plan with that is to monitor it for 2 years, see what kind of numbers you have. And they'll come up with a regulatory number. We don't see a problem with that as well. We don't have it in our drinking water. We don't have industry that creates PFAS. The finishing industry does a little bit, but not too bad, but a little bit of crystal finishing would be the only one that would really. But we don't see it, especially getting out of West Central. When we're accepting.
We did talk about that when our decision making. I mean, now we're getting centrate from 20 communities, 20 other communities. So if they had issues, we would have issues. But once we stop hauling that back here, that will isolate us from the rest of them, which is a positive. Because we don't know what happens in the other 20 communities. You've got to have control of that and it would be in our system.
So our wastewater is gonna be our water, basically.
Yeah. And any other that a commercial company could dump off their product, but.
So we're pretty excited about the future. As far as PFAS goes.
I mean, that's a pretty big deal for a community when you can come up with no detect in this day and age, because it can be a headache in many ways.
We do have to test every quarter this year, so. But it's not one that should show up either. It won't go away, but it shouldn't just show up.
Because it's leaching into the ground.
Yeah, it's the other side of that coin is we should never show up because it's coming from our aquifers and they're. If it's not there, it's not there.
How long have they been looking at it for it?
PFAS, we tested for that 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
And also we got a little early indication last year because the armory tested. So the federal government wanted us to test the armory. They were testing all their armories. So what if we don't? They said, if you don't, we will. And we said, go for it. And they tested. And we learned that they had no detection. So we were like, well, that's good. That was an early indication that it's looking good. And
We really didn't anticipate having PFAS. I mean,
you don't know though,
I
right?
don't know, it's unknown.
Right. So we could feel pretty good about that.
So, yeah.
So anyway, that was the question. So we didn't only give the report, we wanted, we're thinking about. But we are thinking about what if it did happen, what would we do? So.
And the main thing is, if we would have had PFAS, what we would have had to do is put these filtration systems at the wells. I guess to narrow it down to.
Then breed confidence into our customers that the filtration system is working.
And that would have been a cost and an expense. So we don't have to truck anything to Washington. Here we go.
Thanks.
Anything else? Finance?
We are privileged today to have Mr. Josh Solinger, our finance director, here today. Mr. Numbers Guru. It's pretty impressive when you walk by his office, so the spreadsheets are pretty good. Just a few of them. So today I think we have a pretty favorable unofficial end of year report that Josh is going to give us on our free utilities. And then there was a couple of questions from Mr. Lick that came in early that maybe I'll try to answer. So
Yeah.
Josh, thanks for coming tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just gonna go fund by fund, reviewing the budget results for the year. I'll call out some of the variances, some of the larger variances that you see in the percent budgeted column on the report you received. Quick note before I get into it, we are going through the year-end process right now. Our auditors are gonna be on site the first week of March. So these are preliminary year-end results pending completion of the year-end process as an audit. So for the electric fund, year-end revenues totaled $17.2 million and year-end expenses, operating expenses totaled 15.8, almost $15.9 million for a net gain of just under $1.4 million. Now, some of the variances that I want to call out, there's two on the revenue side and two on the expense side. So the first, on the revenue side, you'll see that charges for services were 119% of budgeted. This is tied to the purchased power on the expense side, which was 125% of budgeted. So obviously volatility, inflation was very high for the last 12 months. So our cost of purchased power was significantly higher than a typical year than would have been budgeted. But we're able to essentially recover, and Kevin, you may have more detail behind it than I do, but we're able to recover large portions of that cost through the PCAC adjustment. So
Power cost adjustment charge.
Yep. So if you look on your utility bill, you'll actually see, and it's something we have every month. This year, you would have seen larger than average PCAC adjustments on your utility bill, and it's tied in with our cost of purchased power. So it's a PSC, Public Service Commission provision, that we're able to recover purchased power costs through this mechanism. Other financing revenue was 330% of budgeted, and what this particular one came down to was revenues that we booked for construction contributions. So developers are out developing, as developments occur, developers may pay costs for some of what goes in terms of infrastructure. We then book that as revenue. So other financing uses, you'll see that in several places in this report. It'll either be capital cost contributions like I just described, where the developers are paying the cost, we can book it as a revenue, or it'll be impact fees, which is another development related revenue. So then the last variance I want to get into is administrative in general. And this is another one, sort of a theme you'll see in the other funds. So I sat down with the city administrator to kind of go over year-end results and just review, I guess, what was originally budgeted for 2022, how were costs actually allocated as the year went on. And oftentimes what you're doing is you're doing some reallocations to reflect reality, frankly. So you do your best budget, you do your best plan. You oftentimes will charge certain things to certain places that as the year goes on, you're like, well, maybe 100% of this cost was charged here originally, but we really should reallocate it across multiple funds to better reflect who's receiving the benefit of that cost. An example of that is the comprehensive plan. So as Todd alluded to earlier, the comprehensive plan kind of gives us a sort of a foundation that segues into other work that then occurs for the city. The utilities would be examples of funds that receive some benefit from the comprehensive plan, but it was originally charged 100% of the general fund. So we just did a reallocation there that would have increased what you're seeing for administrative in general. It wasn't originally budgeted that way when the 2022, well, it would have been the 2021, 2022 biennial budget was originally developed back in 2020. But nevertheless, those funds received a benefit and we wanted to make sure that allocation was recognized. There also were some staff reallocations that occurred that are in place for the 2023-2024 budget. So you'll actually see those budgets increased moving forward. But again, we wanted to make sure the reallocations were reflected in 2022 as well. We use those results as the basis, not only for the reallocations, but for how we budgeted the next biennial cycle as well. So those are the two kind of big causes of the variance you're gonna see in administrative and general line throughout these reports. So the next one I'm gonna jump into here is water. And the year-end result for revenue was $2.6 million in revenue and just over $2 million in expenses, or a net of $623,000. Again, two variances on the revenue side and two variances on the expense side I want to call attention to. The first is interest on the revenue side. So another thing Todd alluded to, and just kind of shows how all of this comes full circle, is we haven't yet started significantly anyways on the North Water Tower project. But that was one of our 2022 borrowings. So we wanted to have the cash in hand for when the work started, when we began receiving the invoices. So we've got a larger amount of interest than we typically would have, than we would have budgeted for originally back in 2020, because we have this cash on hand in the form of bond proceeds that we're holding on to until we start to see those big invoices come in. And this is revenue debt for the water utility. You'll see the same thing in the sewer utility for the North Loop project, which is another one that we haven't really got into in earnest quite yet. So we're not spending those bond proceeds down. There are actually IRS regulations that kick in when you're doing general obligation tax exempt debt. So we do have to make sure that gets spent down within 24 months. Anticipate no problems in doing that. But you will see some larger than budgeted interest revenue because of the interest we're earning on fairly large bond proceeds we're still holding on to. And then other financing is 113% variance. This gets into the impact fees I referenced earlier. So as development occurs, we're collecting impact fees on a per permit basis, and development in the city right now has just been rocking and rolling lately. So we're getting more impact fees than we originally contemplated. Another thing too, just something I want to point out is, generally speaking, we're going to want to budget conservatively on the revenue side anyways. That's just a matter of good, principled, fiscally responsible budgeting, best practice budgeting. So we generally are going to err on the side of being conservative anyways. And then in a good development year like we've had, you're going to see a variance like that. So again, I kind of touched on getting into the expense side now. I touched on the administrative and general variance earlier. And then debt service. So we issued debt in 2022, as I mentioned. And for the water utility, for revenue debt, you have to book accrued interest for the year. So we borrowed, we received the money, it was wired to us in October, and we booked $45,000 to $46,000 in accrued interest on those bonds that will be paid in 2023. So it's more of an accounting exercise than anything else, but you have to book the expense for the accrued interest that will be paid in 2023. And so that's what you're seeing there when you see the 187% debt service variance. So we didn't contemplate issuing debt in 2022 back when the budgets were developed in 2020. So getting into the wastewater fund then. So interest, again, North Loop project, that's where you see the 301% variance in this case. Other financing revenues, again, these are sewer impact fees we've collected. On the Biosolids side, I know we've got the Strand contract, I think plays a role in what you're seeing here. 109% variance, it's not terribly large, but again, costs as we originally contemplated them back in 2020 when the budget was developed versus what bids and such came in as for design work. A little higher than we would have estimated probably at the time. And then again, I touched on the administrative and general cost variance earlier. And then stormwater finished with a net gain of $36,393. And there really aren't any big variances that I am going to call out in this one. There is 161% of budgeted variance for interest revenue, but when you look at what the dollar amount that represents, it's not very much. So frankly, I did not dig into that one. Be glad to answer any questions.
Maybe just as soon as you finish up and people are contemplating a question, remind folks that we have engaged WPPI to do a cost of service study for electric, just to make sure that our rates are in the right spot for rising prices. And then once we get our water and sewer service area plan done. We'll be engaging Trilogy Consulting to do the same thing with our water and sewer. We'll do a cost of service study. If it should warrant a rate adjustment, then we would package it up, bring it to you, and go to the PSC. So at this point in time, we're just double checking to make sure that we are collecting enough to cover rising costs.
But looking at all of these, we're getting way more than what we really need, right?
We had a good year. 2023 was a good year. So it might come, the cost of service study can barely even reflect exactly what you're saying, on how your rates are right on.
And then even thinking about the electric, so with the purchase power, and we pass the cost on to,
The consumer.
the consumers. Was the amount of money that was passed on to consumers the right amount? Because even looking at this again, I mean, we have almost $1.4 million that we came out ahead.
Right. So the intention of some of that 1.4 million too, it looks like it might be too much, but then when you figure in the capital projects that we're saving for future projects, so somehow that's reflected in the rates as well. So that money might already have a home in paying for the next transformer on North Sub or a line extension down Winter Street. Big ticket items, so some of that looks like it's above what we need, but actually is probably, a lot of it's probably already allocated towards bigger projects.
It just looks like a lot compared to last
It
year.
really does. So we're moving in the right direction. The last rate increase has kicked in. And we're being, I don't say we're not being frugal, but we watch our spending.
I think for the electric, water and sewer utilities in particular, if we were, close to break even, I would be a little concerned because as Kevin noted, we do have large capital costs on it, so.
And just lastly, as Kellen has to go to another meeting, the cost of service study will tell us that. So when that comes back, they're gonna say, well, geez, you're only gonna have a 2.6 rate of return at current conditions. You're better, you probably have 5, you're not rate of rate. Or they might come back and say, no, you're at 6.1% rate of return, you're right where you need to be. But that exercise will tell us that. The WPPI exercise doesn't cost us any money other than internal staff time.
Okay, thanks.
Kellen, thank you. The gavel goes over. How you feeling?
Anything to do with it?
So any other questions for Josh running this? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Number 8 is utility dashboards.
And looking through those, I don't have a lot to add. I made a few notes. One I pulled out was, we're almost at 17% participation in our green block program. That's good. Winter time is a time for our water crews to be checking wells, all the mechanical portions, greasing things, cleaning them out. We do substation checking in the winter time for electric. Something else is exciting. Wayne and I have been talking about this, right? Because I've been talking about it for 10 years since I got here. But I've seen this, it's called Look Up and Live. It's a demonstration trailer that you can take to schools and out into the public to show kids and people how electricity works. Taking the second or third or fourth graders. They've been working on that this winter and they're putting together our very own Look Up and Live trailer that way you're going to be able to see exactly how electricity works. They're going to flow electricity through these lines on this trailer and probably blow some stuff up, arcs can turn, scare some kids. Electricity can be your friend, but it's also very dangerous. So it'll be a learning tool as well. Hopefully it's one of those impact moments. We don't remember a lot from second grade, but y'all remember the electricity brother came and blew that firecracker out of that transformer. Anyway, we're working on that this winter. It'll be a pretty cool tool for our community. That's really all I had on the dashboards and.
Okay. Number 9 then, anybody questions? Monthly utility report.
Just one thing on your desk, I have State of the City address. If you haven't gone online and signed up for this, we'd love to have you. It's on the house. So Mark, you have a question about that?
Do I? No, I'm signed up.
Is this signed up?
Mark is signed up. See, Mark, it can be done. Mark
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah, I did it, so.
So where do you, so where do you go to sign up?
We got an email, I emailed them again today, and they got the link for it,
Okay,
and it needs to be done by Wednesday.
2 emails now.
Yep, 2 emails, yeah.
Good reminder.
we have 5 more to go and you'll sign up. 7 is the
2.
But I believe there's a breakfast there that morning,
Yes.
and Mr. Simpson will go through state of the city. Kind of a who's who of River Falls, so if you have the time, come on out, I'm going to hang you.
And they can come without 2 drinks.
Yeah, you don't have to. That's really all I have.
I had a question maybe for Dean on the December 2022 summation of, it says repair 2 broken curb stops, and I guess I don't know what those are.
So the curb stops are it's the valve out in your front yard.
Oh.
There's a curb stop that goes down to your service line in your house, where we can shut it on and off. There was 2 different. We were there for meter changeouts. We had to try and turn the curb stop off. When we went to turn it off, they broke the curb stop.
So they break sometimes. So, and also, you know, another time we break them off is springtime when the ground starts thawing, they might come up a little bit. If you get a late snow, and snow plows go, they get them. So if you get like an early thaw, they come up out of the ground a little bit, and then you get a little snow after that. We'll pay half a dozen off, or somebody will on the snow plows. So.
Is that the utilities expense or it is our expense? Yes.
Customer owns right up to where it connects onto the line.
Curb stop to the main is ours, including the curb stop.
And the other question was, there was a main break?
Yep.
I don't-
You know,
What kind
Water
of
main
break?
break?
Yeah.
Busy night tonight. Sorry.
it's like an iPhone for being.
I believe this one on Grove Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what happens, and I'm not 100% sure how this happens. But on Grove Street, there was a crack all the way around the main. And water had been running down we figured the water's been running like for a couple weeks down the gutter under the snow. And we went and cleaned out the hydrant. Cleaned the snow from the hydrant, we did that, the water showed itself onto the road, so. Yeah, I don't have an answer for this particular, a lot of times either in the spring or early when frost is moving, they'll break. But this was just, it just happens,
There's a name for that type of break too, and it was like a test question.
it's more common than you think. But
What's this particular main made of? What is
it's up to iron.
it's up?
Yeah, it was a very old one and it was completely cracked all around. And what we do is we dig down, we have a stainless steel band that's rubber that goes around, it's like a Band-Aid, I guess, for lack of. And you just bolt that on there and it seals it up. And that's what gets us.
So Dean, after you do that work you just mentioned, we save that and go back and repair that a different way, or does that last?
That's the way it is repaired. That's permanent repair and it's common practice. And if it splits, like parallel with the water line, then you have to cut it out. Cause that could keep going. If you put a band on there, it could go past the band. So normally it's about a 24-inch band and you can buy them and they're made for that height. So as long as they're cracked or a hole, you can just put that band on, but like I said, if they split the lengthwise, then you have to cut it out and put a new piece in. Thank you. But we don't do that, we hire it out, which is. We supply all the parts and stuff, but we hire someone else to do the digging.
Well, in fairness, we should probably ask Wayne a question.
It's exciting.
Wayne and I talked today, and I go, "John, you come to that?" And I'm like, no, you don't have to. But this guy's a gamer, right? He's still gonna get up there and shoot a base. Just the kid's got to steal a base at the end. Never know. You never know.
That's most that.
Wayne, things been going good in this department?
Well, things are going good. Obviously, you let the cat out of the bag with the trailer, so. Team is
We'll
excited.
probably take it to this repair and show,
I think we should.
do a practice run. Bring your goggles.
Yeah.
So. That's all we have.
Any announcements?
No, state of the city was one you want to keep on your calendar.
David.
We heard lots tonight about the comprehensive plan. It is open for public review through the 26th of this month. Please go review if you've got some.
So how do we see that? Where do we go see that?
AHRF.org.
Say it again.
AHRF.org. It's the comp plan, it's the outdoor rec plan and the vice and the district plan.
Thank you. Open for public comment. Where are you gonna put the ice cream, Mark?
That's right. It looked like in the reports, that there weren't very many people who were having to be shut off or warned, maybe some businesses.
So I did get a number on that, so, remember, we're in the call, it's called a moratorium, so you can't shut some electricity off in the winter time. Up until April 15th, I believe is the day. I did get a number on electric, Wendy brought it to my office this other day, 107,000 outstanding, which maybe seemed like a lot, but I think we were like 135 last year, I believe. So it's a little less this year than last year at this point in time of outstanding electric. And businesses, we can't shut them off, we haven't this winter, it's the typical dozen or so that we're wrestling with. But everybody usually makes payment arrangements and comes through and satisfies the needs of our customer service staff to keep them on. River Falls, just you can shut water off in the winter time if someone doesn't pay. We elect not to do that at River Falls. We did shut one customer off once a few years ago, and they said, I don't care. They said it became a problem because they didn't have water.
So I don't think there's back on yet, are they?
I think so. So what do you do? If you try to make a move to do something and they don't react. That was interesting. That was interesting. So no, we like not to shut people's water off, though you could. Some communities do that, we don't. And again, the front desk does such a great job. They're already getting their letters together. They'll be making proactive calls here in March ahead of the April 15th timeframe, and then you can shut people off. Some people obviously will go to winter and not pay, and they come around. But we actively call people, we do local calls, we actively personally call, and they do a great job. And it'll always whittle down to a handful. But it takes a lot of work. Get the job like that. Our goal is not to shut people off, our goal is to work with people and keep them on, but there are always a few.
Anything from anyone else? Nick, online, anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you, guys.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
the meeting is adjourned.
Good.
Well, have fun in the snow.